October 31st, 2008. In a dark, unknown corner of the internet, a link to a paper authored by a man named Satoshi Nakamoto is suddenly posted to a cryptography mailing list. 2 months later, on January 3rd, 2009, the Bitcoin network is created when the unknown Nakamoto mines the starting block of the chain, better known as the Genesis block. Embedded inside is a line that reads, quote, "The Times, January 3rd, 2009. Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks." This is a reference to a headline published by a British newspaper. While some view it as a timestamp, others see it as a critique of the fractional reserve banking system. Either way, this magical piece of code goes from being worthless to a $1 trillion asset in just over 10 years. Nakamoto shortly after disappeared and was never heard from again. It is believed that during the first 7 months of Bitcoin's existence, Satoshi mined as many as 1.1 million Bitcoin. This fortune, now worth in excess of $30 billion, remains untouched to this day. Celebrities, CEOs, CNBC, and even Fortune 500 companies like Tesla have endorsed the cryptocurrency as a legitimate form of wealth storage. Payment apps like Dorsey's Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal offer ways to integrate into the Bitcoin blockchain. You would think that after more than a decade of success, people skeptical of government, afraid of paper money, and open-minded to new ideas would flock to an asset like this. But there are plenty who still strongly believe that Bitcoin is headed to zero, a worthless scam that is the result of a super bubble. At the top of this list is Dr. Michael Burry, who made it clear that Bitcoin is worthless, in his mind a scam of biblical proportions. To review his thoughts in depth, I went over all of his tweets, now deleted, starting from February 1st, 2021, going over each that mentioned the cryptocurrency. Remember that Burry almost never gives interviews. I've looked and it's very hard to find a single video of the guy talking about anything recent. He keeps a very low profile and the only communication we get from him are his firm's 13Fs, which showcase his positions, and his Twitter, which he deletes occasionally. The good news is that various other websites and Twitter accounts archive his tweets so that we can view them at a later date. To begin formulating his thesis on crypto, we start with the first tweet that mentions Bitcoin, a tweet from February 8th, 2021. His thoughts from this event formulate the base of his entire opinion on Bitcoin and offer the audience an alternative view on the entire subject of cryptocurrency. Burry is a skeptical guy, and if you remember earlier in the year, Tesla bought a bunch of Bitcoin and then sold it quickly after claiming that Musk was unaware of the environmental impact Bitcoin mining causes. This was reported as a bizarre event, and it sent shockwaves throughout the crypto world. Elon, who was previously pro-Bitcoin, had all of a sudden changed his mind, and this happened to coincide with Chinese regulators summoning Tesla to answer for what they claimed were quality control issues. For Burry, something just didn't smell right. Elon was the Bitcoin bull, and his company's purchase of BTC sent the price soaring. Now all of a sudden they were selling their entire position? From his perspective, Tesla's dabble into crypto raised alarms for Chinese leadership, and the CCP had essentially forced Musk to sell. Although he doesn't claim it right in the tweet, it's implied if you read it over. This tweet actually sparked a flurry of other bearish thoughts regarding crypto, like this one from February 11th, which claimed that the worldwide banking elite had every reason to crush Bitcoin as it's mostly mined in sanctioned countries, implying that Bitcoin had many headwinds in its future if it intends to butt heads with organizations like the European Central Bank, the US Fed, and the IMF. Then we have this one from February 21st. Bulls like to claim that Bitcoin will eventually serve as the worldwide standard and it will solve something called Tiffin's dilemma, otherwise known as Tiffin's paradox, an economic conflict that many actually blame as the cause for the 2008 economic meltdown. You can look this up on your own time, but in summary, the theory basically says if your currency becomes the worldwide reserve currency the way the dollar is now, then there will be added demand for that currency across the planet. In short, skipping all of the details and simplifying this down to a couple of sentences, this basically forces the US government to run ever-growing deficits, indirectly causing all kinds of problems, including a serious trade deficit. It is believed by many that Bitcoin solves Tiffin's dilemma, but Burry points out that solving this requires extreme liquidity and gives the example of the Swiss franc as the showcase for why you can't do this with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a scaling problem to serve at that level. Following this, there are multiple tweets that boil down to headwinds faced by Bitcoin via regulatory risk, As a mostly unregulated asset, governments around the world, in his opinion, will look to impose rules and regulations that may not favor the coin. This is embraced in a February 25th tweet that sums up Burry's views regarding BTC. In essence, he claims that the investment poses more risk than opportunity, a tweet that caused a massive backlash, with many calling him and other Bitcoin bears like Charlie Munger, quote, out of touch. Munger famously had this to say about it.
Now that the crypto market overall is valued at $2 trillion, do you still consider cryptos as worthless artificial gold?
Well, I knew there'd be a question on Bitcoin or crypto. And I thought to myself, well, I've watched these politicians dodge questions all the time, and I always find it kind of disgusting when they do it. But the truth is, I'm going to dodge that question because we probably got hundreds of thousands of people watching this that own Bitcoin, and we probably got 2 people that are short. So we got a choice of making 400,000 people mad at us and unhappy, or making 2 people happy, and that's just a dumb equation. So I'm all right on that one, and maybe we'll see how Charlie is.
Well, those who know me well are just waving the red flag of the bull. Of course, I hate the Bitcoin success. And I don't welcome a currency that's so useful to kidnappers and extortionists and so forth, nor do I like just shuffling out a few extra billions and billions and billions of dollars to somebody who just invented a new financial product out of thin air. So I think I should say modestly that I think the whole damn development is disgusting and contrary to the interests of civilization. And I'll leave the criticism to others.
Regardless of what you may think, that Munger clip will make history. As for people calling him out of touch, Burry had this to say. Ultimately, Burry tweeted 8 more times about Bitcoin after this date, and I'm not going to spend the rest of this video going over each one. Instead, I'll summarize his thoughts with this February 27th tweet, which I think stands out from the rest as the primary pillar of his thesis. It reads, quote, "Fads today, BTC, EV, SaaS, and meme stocks are like housing in 2007 and fiber, dot-coms, and routers in 1999. On the whole, not wrong, just driven by speculative fever to insane heights from which the fall will be dramatic and painful. Frauds to the WorldCom and Enrons of today." That tweet will live in history and cement his legacy as either genius or idiot. Bitcoin at the end of the day is a financial instrument that is backed by nothing, with a price driven by human psychology. Critics of Burry, Munger, and all the other big shots who hate crypto would ask why these people are not shorting it if they believe it's worth zero. And the answer is because in the short term, Bitcoin can go anywhere. Asking that question will be like asking a hedge fund why they're not shorting any of these .coms in 1999. It's very possible that Bitcoin goes up to 100K or even more as the momentum builds up. But after doing the research for this video, I tend to think more like this. It's a long answer by Warren Buffett, but it's well worth the listen.
Charlie said Bitcoin's like rat poison. You were asked about that comment, and you said, well, it's probably more like rat poison squared. Charlie went on in the meeting to then basically call Bitcoin turds.
He is an expressive sort, isn't he? Maybe when he gets a little older, he'll mature.
I just want to ask you about that because it sparks so much controversy, and particularly on Twitter and some of the places where you might expect people who are trading in cryptocurrency to be pretty loud about what they heard. What is it about Bitcoin that gets you guys so fired up?
Well, when you buy a farm, you look at the crop every year and what prices are, and you decide whether it was a satisfactory investment. I mean, you look to the asset itself and what it produces for you. When we buy a business, we look at what the business earns and decide how we feel about it in terms of what we paid. But we are buying something that at the end of the period, we not only have what we bought in the first place, but we have something that the asset produced. And when you buy non-productive assets, all you're counting on is whether the next person is going to pay you more because they're even more excited about another next person coming along. But the asset itself is creating nothing. One of the interesting things, for example, is gold. If you go back to the time of Christ and you look at how many hours of labor you had to give up in order to buy an ounce of gold, and you take it forward to now, you'll find the compound rate maybe 1/10 or 0.2%. And then you have to insure it during that time and make sure somebody doesn't steal it from you and everything. But it doesn't produce anything. And productive assets, you can pay too much for a productive asset. But I bought a farm in the 1980s, and every year look at how much it produced the way of soybeans and corn. And at the end of that period, I've still got the farm, and I've gotten some significant income off of it. Apartment house, operating business. But if you and I buy various cryptocurrencies, they're not going to multiply. They're not going to be a bunch of rabbits sitting there in front of us. They're just going to sit there. And I got to hope next time you get more excited after I bought it from you, and then maybe I'll get more excited and buy it from you. And actually, we could sit in the house by ourselves, and we could keep running up the price between the two of us. But at the end of the time, there's one Bitcoin sitting there, and now we got to find somebody else. And they come to an end. I mean, those.
So, that's a greater fool theory. That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, it's buying something because you expect the pool of people who want to buy it because they want to sell it to somebody else will grow, and
people love to speculate and they love to gamble, and that's what Bitcoin is. As an owner, you have to ask yourself, do you even understand what you're holding? Can you explain Bitcoin to a 5-year-old? I wouldn't hesitate to guess that you likely can't. In fact, I invite you to watch this 26-minute video by YouTube creator 3Blue1Brown. It's probably the best attempt to explain how Bitcoin actually works. And even after watching it twice, I'm nowhere near close enough to say I fully understand. I went back and forth on crypto since 2017, but I think it's finally clicked. The reason I'm attracted to it isn't because I believe in its future or I understand its possibilities, or I think that crypto technology is going to revolutionize the world, but rather, I'm only hoping to sell it for more than what I paid. It's a mysterious magic box of sorts that I don't get, and when you own it, you tend to look away from the tweets and videos that criticize and call out all the negative aspects. You begin to live in an echo chamber, hearing only the good. To me, the comparison is simple. This is no different than all the other speculative bubbles throughout history. At one point, humans were paying top dollar for tulips only because rising prices attract more buyers, a loop that can last for quite a long time, bringing in more and more people via greed and FOMO until finally the rug is pulled. For those of you that watch my videos, you will know that I often include a link to my BlockFi code below. As of today, I'm removing the code, and I'm selling off my Bitcoin position, which for full disclosure has increased about 21% for a total profit of around $4,000. I have nothing bad to say about my experience at BlockFi. The product is amazing if you believe in the future of crypto, but the entire infrastructure of the company is based around a financial instrument that is a mystery to me. And after some thinking, I'm done getting into investments where I don't understand the mechanisms driving profits. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for doing this in the comment section, and I will admit to you that exiting the position was much easier considering that I was up around 20%. But I don't want to promote crypto or anything else on this channel unless I'm actually using the product or firmly believe in it. I was never paid to sponsor anything, and the only revenues I got was from people clicking the affiliate link and depositing. Considering Bitcoin has only went up since I began promoting, I can safely assume that the vast majority of you who used it to deposit are also in the green. If you are using the service, I would just rethink and analyze your position and look over the bear case on crypto. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, and Burry are incredibly smart businessmen who have observed many different things in the finance world. While they may seem washed or boomers to the crypto crowd, I do think they make a lot of valid points that are worth considering, especially if you're investing thousands of dollars in this space. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed.